In Oxygen Not Included, managing liquids is a key part of the game. But what if you didn't have access to the main way to manage liquids? No liquid pipes, and therefore none of these buildings that use those liquid pipes. How far can you get in the game? Can you beat it? The great thing about Oxygen Not Included is that when there is a problem, there is usually a lot of solutions. So let's find out. Can you beat Oxygen Not Included without liquid pipes? These are a list of mods I've used in this run, just quality of life stuff. And without further ado, let's go. The first thing we gotta select is where our home is gonna be. And we're gonna go with the Squalchia cluster. I'd like to have access to a lot of polluted water for reasons that will be clear in just a bit. And this is not a particularly hard asteroid in a regular run, but this is a no liquid pipes run, and the idea is to find new solutions to old problems, not tear our hair out. Not that I have much hair to tear out. And the starting traits are gonna be frozen core, crashed satellite, and geoactive. The frozen core and crashed satellite turned out to be mildly useful, but not too useful. But the geoactive one, not gonna lie, was very, very useful, and you'll see why as we go through the run. The next thing we gotta do is select our first 3 starting duplicates. We don't do anything too crazy here. 1 science man, 2 diggers, let's go. We set up the schedules, build a latrine, some cots, and then we start pooling all of our polluted water into a single pool, while making sure that no water gets into it. That's going to be very, very important. So what exactly is this? This is basically going to be the main way our duplicates are going to breathe. You may have heard of the SPOM. This is an SPOM, a self-powered polluted oxygen maker. Let me explain how it works. So polluted water in Oxygen Not Included off-gases, as you can see from the bubbles here. And how much it off-gases depends on how much polluted water you have. So this is going to off-gas less than this, and this is going to off-gas less than that. But once you reach 1,000 kilos at the very bottom layer, then it doesn't matter how much liquid you have on top. You will always off-gas the same amount of polluted oxygen. So in this test setup, for example, there is more polluted water here than polluted water here, but the bottom tiles, they all have 1,000 kilos of water. But if you look here, they have the same amount of gas. But for the ones that don't have as much polluted water, there is less gas here. And based on this test setup, for around 20 tiles, so here 20 tiles of polluted water, that's going to support around 7 duplicates if they just breathe polluted oxygen. If you clean the oxygen, then you'll be able to support more duplicates. There is something that's very dangerous for this setup though. If any water ends up on top of your polluted water pool, it's going to be very hard to get rid of. And that's a problem because if water ends up at the top, no more oxygen is going to off-gas. So if you're going to make an SPOM, water is your biggest enemy. Stay away from water. We're now at cycle 30. We've expanded to 9 duplicates, so we're expanding our food supply, and we'd like to keep that food supply, so we make a fridge surrounded by carbon dioxide. But we also want better quality food, so we start making stables. We're starting out with hatches that we're feeding sedimentary rock so that we can turn them into stone hatches, and stone hatches are amazing. They will eat literal rocks and poop out 50% of what they ate as coal, which is power. And then we're also going to be feeding some of those stone hatches metal ore so that they can turn into smooth hatches. And smooth hatches can eat metal ore and turn it into refined metal. It's very useful if you can't access the metal refinery. And as we continue expanding and digging, we find something very, very useful. I'm gonna be honest, if we didn't find this thing, was probably gonna restart the run. We found a polluted water vent, meaning we have a sustainable source of polluted oxygen. But Christmas doesn't end there, because close by we also find a cool slush geyser. And we also have made a setup for infinite food storage. You can see the hydrogen, you can see the wheezewort. We just need something to feed the wheezewort with, and that is the phosphorite. Eventually we're going to have another wheezewort in there, and that's going to be our infinite food storage for the rest of the game. We start getting our first eggs from the hatches, the extra eggs, which we're going to turn into barbecue and then shoot it into a very cold location, the infinite food storage. Next thing we do is we start setting up a very large tank for our polluted and cool slush geysers. And then we get an absolute classic Oni moment, which is, almost drowning our duplicants. So we decide to save them. Please get out, breathe oxygen. No, not food. We don't need food at the moment. Please leave and use your nostrils. Go. Thank you very much. The other problem we end up facing as we expand the water tank is we've accidentally leaked a leaky oil fissure, and it's now spewing very, very hot oil into the environment, so we decide to cap it off. Our eggs have started hatching, and we're about to make our first barbecue that's going to enter the infinite food storage. Let's see that happen. Love it. Fantastic. We also get our very first smooth hatchling egg, and we want to get that hatched up and running ASAP, so we give it a few hugs so that we can start refining metals. Our tank for our polluted water geyser and cool slush geyser is almost done, and as you can see, I'm putting airflow tiles at the top of it for a very important reason. I don't want any water ending up at the top of it, so this serves as a protective layer that is not gonna allow the water to mix with the polluted water. And then we add another contingency. Duplicants are not allowed to go through these doors. Eventually, if they're walking with a piece of ice, I don't want that piece of ice going into the tank and then causing all of them to suffocate and die. And the next thing we do is we combine our previous polluted water tank into the new one. Then, just to be careful, you can never be too careful, especially with oxygen not included, we add airflow tiles at the top of the polluted water vent and the cool slush geyser. At this point, the carbon dioxide has built up by a lot, and if we don't deal with it, it's going to deal with us. Usually, you just throw a carbon skimmer and maybe a water sieve, and you're done. But since we don't have access to liquid pipes, we're going to go with a different solution. We're going to have a pump attached to two gas sensors. If both of these gas sensors detect that there is carbon dioxide in the air, it's going to tell the gas pump to keep pumping. And where is it going to pump all of that carbon dioxide? Into a chamber where gas can be stored infinitely. At this point, the duplicants are doing a massive sweep of the area, and while that was happening, my man Harold here got stuck again. I almost drowned him last time, and this time I almost made him suffocate in carbon dioxide. Thankfully, he is our smartest guy. As soon as this ladder is built, he's gonna go where he's not supposed to go. Go up, my man. Get oxygen. Now, as we continue expanding, the carbon dioxide is going to be coming with us, but not only carbon dioxide, other nasty gases too, chlorine, natural gas. So we decide to change the way our carbon dioxide pump works. Instead of detecting carbon dioxide, now it's going to detect if it's not polluted oxygen that's in the air above it. So it's going to keep pumping until the sensors read that there is only polluted oxygen there. Otherwise, send it into infinite storage. Now, this entire time you might have been wondering, why are we not cleaning the polluted oxygen with deodorizers? Well, the answer is simple. Because it's free. Why spend duplicate labor, sand, and power on something we just get? Yes, there is a debuff called Yucky Lungs, which causes duplicants to need 30% more oxygen than usual, but it's not a big deal, except for this next part. We are going to need clean oxygen, because if things go wrong in this next section, and our base is filled with polluted oxygen, this might be the end. I also built something I had a feeling we're gonna need, and there is a hospital. We gotta be careful, and because we're gonna be extra careful as well, we're gonna have our dupes have more downtime than usual. So in that downtime, I was like, why don't you guys run on hamster wheels, train your little legs so that you can build up your athletics skill as well. That's right, it's time to go for the slime biome. There's reed fiber in there, which we want for Atmo suits, and there's gold amalgam in there, which is needed for gold, and it's also useful in making buildings that can survive slightly hotter conditions. So we make a pathway. This is the only pathway our duplicants are going to be able to go through to get to the slime biome, because we want to set up an area that basically zaps away any slime lung germs before it gets into our base. And the way we do that is with a couple of flowers, weezeworts. The plan was simple: start digging, and any slime lung we dig up, we put it on top of the weezeworts. The weezeworts would then obliterate any slime lung germs from the polluted oxygen that the slime would off-gas and the slime itself. The thing is though, eventually the slime got so massive, it's such a big blob, that the weezeworts couldn't kill the slime lung germs on it fast enough. So we go for the nuclear option and we start adding chlorine. And that worked absolutely fantastic. 0 slime lung germs on the slime. We also start cleaning the oxygen in the slime biome to start killing off the slime lung in the air there. But despite our best efforts, someone got sick. My man Harold is not feeling too well. Thankfully, we did make medical packs before we dug up the slime biome, and a doctor shows up shortly, and he is now feeling fantabulous. And sometime later, we are now done digging up our first slime biome. And what are we gonna do with all of this slime we've been terrified of? We're gonna turn it into something useful. We're gonna grow all of it into mushrooms that will be useful later on. But if slime lung is the equivalent of COVID in oxygen not included, zombie spores are the equivalent of rabies. Very, very dangerous. So before we dig up this poor kid, we zap it with some radiation, and then we dig it up, and no more rabies for our duplicates. And since now we have access to thimble reed seeds, we can now turn it into thimble reed so we can make Atmo suits. So we start setting up this area, and we start making natural tiles using this trick where we deconstruct an airlock door in this specific setup. And then we end up with 15 natural tiles, and we use a pip to grab thimble reed seeds and then plant them on those natural tiles. And now we can think of making Atmo suits. And since we've now achieved our main goal of going into the slime biome, there is no need to clean the oxygen in our main base anymore. If there was slime lung, sure, but the slime lung has been zapped away from the slime and the air in the slime biome. We've been cleaning it. So why spend sand and power on something unnecessary? So goodbye, deodorizers. And now say hello to deodorizers, because we are going to be cleaning some of the polluted oxygen so that we can feed our Atmo suits. So we start making this setup, and it's very simple. Deodorizers, gas pumps, done. We put a liquid lock on the Atmo suits at the top left of our base. I know some oxygen not included veterans are not a fan of this kind of liquid lock, but we're going to use it anyway. And this indestructible liquid lock is not going to have any problems. Right? And we start exploring, and then we also put some Atmo suits at the bottom right of our base, and we start exploring the oil biome. And as we do, we find a surprise. Another polluted water vent. But we also find a not very nice surprise. Apparently one of those fossil storage things leaked massive heat into part of the oil biome, and now there is hundreds of kilos of sour gas. So we use diagonal building. We build tiles the way you see here so that none of that gas escapes and causes us a bunch of problems. At this point, we start building a setup that's going to give us sustainable barbecue. Yes, we've been getting barbecue from stone hatches, but the thing is with stone hatches, yes, they eat literal rocks, but they eat a lot of rocks. We have 40 stone hatches, and each one eats 140 kilograms of rocks a cycle. That's 5.6 tons each cycle. And let's say, you have a base that's going to last at least 1,000 cycles. At that point, they would have eaten the entire map. And we want to keep, especially in this run, some rocks to crush into sand. We're going to need that for deodorizers later on. So we build our perpetual barbecue factory. We vacuum out the area. We add an atmosuit dock so that our duplicates working here don't get blinded. The entire place is going to be filled with chlorine. And what is this factory going to be making? Dracos. Dracos eat balm lilies, and balm lilies don't need anything. You just need a hot environment, and that's why there are liquid tempetizers underneath them. There we go. Infinite meat for the rest of time. And now that we have a sustainable food source, we want sustainable power as well. We found this water geyser underneath our base, and we're going to use it to cool down 2 natural gas vents. Now, natural gas vents, they spawn natural gas at 150 degrees Celsius. Usually, this is not an issue if you can make steel, because steel overheats at 275 degrees Celsius. But since we don't have a metal refinery, no liquid pipes, we have to use gold amalgam. And gold amalgam overheats at 125 degrees Celsius. So the plan is simple. We're going to cool down these gas pumps using 95 degrees Celsius water, which has more than enough cooling capacity to keep the natural gas under 125 degrees Celsius. But eventually, if we just leave the water there, the natural gas is going to turn that water into steam, and eventually the water geyser is going to stop outputting water. So what we do is we use these doors to eventually crush the hotter water so that the cooler, fresher water can replace it. Then we use shipping whales to have cobalt go between the water from the water geyser and into the natural gas. And that's going to keep things nice and cool, and we can use both of those natural gas vents. We also build an infinite gas storage room so that we don't waste any natural gas coming out of the vents. And now we are ready to use that natural gas and turn it into glorious, glorious, sustainable power. One of our indestructible liquid locks, someone peed in it. So, I set up a warning system if ever the liquid lock changes the kind of liquid lock we want it to be. In this case, it was replaced by polluted water. Then an automated notifier is going to let us know that the indestructible liquid lock is no longer indestructible. And with that out of the way, we continue exploring. We find a cobalt volcano, a copper volcano, and we also find a cool slush geyser, plus a crashed satellite, which outputs a lot of radiation. That means it was time to start material research. And guess what? Someone peed in our indestructible lock again. This time though, we've been notified. So we add another layer to make the indestructible liquid lock more indestructible. And we also tackle another slime biome. And for some reason, I don't know why I did this. I decided to go with the insane solution of putting wheezeworts next to the slime so that we kill the slime before we dig up the slime, and therefore there would be no slime lying on the slime as soon as we dig it up. Crazy solution, but we did for one of the slime biomes. We continue not having any problems with our indestructible liquid locks, and now we decide we want to tackle the volcanoes that we found, the copper and the cobalt volcano, plus we found an iron volcano too. Typically, for metal volcanoes, you'd use steam turbines to cool them down. Sometimes you can strap aqua tuners on them as well if you want the material to be even cooler. But we don't have liquid pipes, so no steam turbines, no aqua tuners. How are we gonna keep them cool? With that cool slush geyser. So we build a massive perimeter around the area and we lock it in with one of these. Then we build doors so that we can crush the gases inside. So these are effectively gas pumps that require no power. Plus we also add gas pumps and we start taking all the gases out. We start analyzing the volcanoes since we are now dealing with a vacuum. And I almost turn Harold into barbecue because he's sitting in very, very hot liquid molten iron. And then I almost turn him into barbecue again. And then I almost turn him into barbecue again. What have we learned here? Don't have your dupes try to analyze volcanoes in molten metal. At this point, the 3 metal volcanoes have started to turn the brine inside this chamber into steam. So we want to avoid a potential problem here. And to avoid this problem, we build this massive loop of conveyor rails with cobalt on these conveyor rails. And the reason why is we want to redistribute the heat in the chamber so that the heat from the volcanoes can actually reach the cool slush geyser. And what this is going to do is basically keep most of the chamber to be around the same temperature. Now, when the entire chamber eventually fills with steam, this atmosensor is going to tell the doors at the very bottom of the chamber if the steam near the cool slush geyser becomes higher than 20 kilograms, it's going to tell the doors to close. And that's going to crush some of the steam so that the volcanoes and the cool slush geyser don't get blocked from too much steam. And it's going to make sure that the cool slush geyser can keep, cooling. One of our dupes has decided to go through the liquid lock with some very hot material from one of the volcanoes, turning the crude oil into petroleum and even sour gas. So we add a door so that we can lock the duplicants from using material inside this chamber before everything cools down, and we fix everything. And while we were taming the volcanoes, we also built this ranch that is going to give us a lot of plastic. We did get tiny amounts of plastic from a couple of glossy Dracos that spawned from our Dracos, but we want much more. So this setup is going to house Dracos who are going to eat mealwood, and that's going to increase the chances that they spawn glossy Dracos, which we can shear once every 3 cycles for 200 kilos of plastic. And in that top left corner, eventually there's going to be a lot of them. And more than 500 cycles later, we finally decide to go to another planet. And this is the planet we have a teleporter for. And the main reason we are here is to get seeds, which will give us unlimited power. Now, you might be thinking, didn't you just, make unlimited power? No, this is more unlimited power. The natural gas vents, we want to use those to cook with. These seeds, we're going to turn them into way more unlimited power than just what those natural gas vents can provide. And to turn these seeds into unlimited power, we're going to need a lot of pips. And by a lot of pips, I mean a lot of pips. So we build a couple of ranches, and that's what they look like. The thing is, when we went on our little adventure, we only managed to get 2 Saturn critter trap seeds. If you want, a lot of unlimited power, we're gonna need more than just 2. So what this is a seed duplicator. There is this quirky thing in Oxygen Not Included, where if you have a storage bin set to a limit of 1 kilogram, and then put a very small amount of material inside the storage bin, and then try to store a seed in that storage bin, that seed is going to split between the storage bin and a small section of the seed outside the storage bin. If you take that small section of the seed and plant it into a farm tile and then dig it up, you get a full seed. So if you want more seeds, what you do is you split the seed, plant it, then dig it up, and then split, plant, dig, 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 blah, 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 and you have a lot of seeds. And the way we're going to use these a lot of seeds is by wild planting them. Now, when you wild plant a plant instead of, domesticating it, you pay no resource cost. It's a big upside. But the downside is you get less material. You get 25% of the material from a domesticated plant. But this is not a rule that applies to Saturn critter traps. For some reason, they still output the same whether they are wild or domesticated. So there is no reason for you to pay the resource cost, polluted water. But there is one thing that's annoying when it comes to wild planting Saturn critter traps. They eat the pips that plant them. Look at this. So this took absolute ages to do. Sometimes the pips do get lucky though. This particular pip survived planting like 3 Saturn critter traps, and then, unfortunately, it turned into plant meat. The next thing we needed to do is to cool the area. Actively cool the area because Saturn critter traps, they require a very cold environment. Initially, I was using one thermal regulator to try and cool things down because, they're wild planted. They shouldn't need that much cooling. But the thing is, the pips had a lot of heat capacity. They kept heating up the area. So we had to upgrade our cooling system. And the way these 8 thermoregulators are being cooled themselves is with the polluted water vent right next to them. So after all of that, how much power are we getting? Let's go through the math. We have 36 Saturn critter traps, each producing 41.67 grams of hydrogen. That means we are producing 1.5 kilograms of hydrogen a second, which is enough to power 15 hydrogen generators, each capable of producing 800 watts of power. Multiply that and you get 0 power issues forever. We just do one more thing before moving on, and that's setting up infinite gas storage for the hydrogen. Now, why would you do this? Can't you just pump it into generators and be done with it? Well, the reason is simple. We want to use the hydrogen coming out of the Saturn critter traps later on as coolant because it's very, very cold. And Saturn critter traps, when they spawn the hydrogen, it comes out the same temperature as their body temperature. So effectively, we're getting more cooling than the active cooling we're pumping into them. The problem is, though, we're feeding them right now with pips, and pips can survive very low temperatures. Later on, when we introduce bees, which can survive very low temperatures, we can cool things down to be even more than what they are right now, to almost minus 50 degrees Celsius. But cooling down hundreds of kilos of hydrogen would take ages. So we send the hydrogen we're getting at the moment into a separate room so that we can cool things down. The thing is, while I was doing this though, I noticed Stinky. But who is Stinky? Waddling his way slowly here, way slower than everybody else. For a long time in my runs, random duplicates would just show up out of the blue, and I had no idea why this was happening. I thought I was printing them by accident from the printing pod, but this time I have video footage so I can go back and see what's going on. It turns out, I have dev mode enabled so I can access very high speeds. I'm not using it to cheat, I swear. And if you press Ctrl F2, this happens. So I guess welcome aboard, Stinky. You need to train a bit, leg day, let's say for 200 cycles, then you can consider putting on an Atmos suit. While we were getting lots and lots of unlimited power, I noticed a problem with the metal volcanoes. The metals coming out are just not cooling down fast enough. I've done some calculations, and by I mean ChatGPT helped me out. This steam room should equalize at a temperature of 180 degrees Celsius, including the metals as well. But because, they're all in one big blob, one big mass, that is not what is happening. If we had access to steel, we can build conveyor loaders and auto sweepers inside the steam room. Steel overheats at a temperature of 275, which is going to be below, more than what is needed to not overheat inside the steam room. And we can send small amounts of metal on conveyor rails, and that's going to exchange heat very fast with the steam. But we don't have access to steel. So we build the conveyor loaders and auto sweepers outside the steam room, and through a corner they can still access the metal. The metal goes around the steam room in small quantities, and that's enough to cool it down very fast. The thing is, as long as the metals are below 540 degrees Celsius, that's all we care about, because our duplicants can take the material and just go through the indestructible liquid lock without causing the indestructible liquid lock to become sour gas. The thing is, duplicants have this magical ability where if they use very hot material to build something with, the thing they build with resets to a temperature of 45 degrees Celsius. So we build a similar setup for the copper volcano and the cobalt volcano, and easy peasy, lemon squeezy. We've got some more slime to take care of, and we were gonna tackle the problem the way we've always tackled it, and that's using wheezeworts. But then I was like, no, this is stupid. We should have just done this. Chlorine room, send the slime in there, and once the slime lung is dead, we can take it out. We also build a massive power plant to make use of all that hydrogen we're making from the Saturn critter traps. You'll notice there's 15 of them. And no need to cool them down with any fancy shenanigans. The hydrogen coming in is the same thing that cools the generators down. That includes the batteries and the transformers too. It's now time to finally think about going to space with rockets. And for that, we're going to need oxalite, lots and lots of oxalite, so that our duplicants can breathe. So we start building this chamber next to our second polluted water vent, where the off-gassed polluted oxygen is going to get filtered by a lot of deodorizers and then pumped into 2 oxalite refineries. Someone pees in our indestructible liquid lock again, so we clean that up for like the 10th time. And it is at this point we make a massive mistake. We just let in something that could kill our colony. You know how I said, let's dig up the slime and then put it in a chlorine chamber? Well, that was a bad idea, because we've let the slime off gas outside our base, and outside our base, it's pretty much still 2020. So we have to enact emergency protocols immediately. Deodorizers everywhere. Shut off any sources of polluted oxygen. Cure any duplicant of I don't care what it's called, slime lung immediately. And at this point, no, it's not working. It seems to be spreading real fast. So we go back to the classic solution, wheezeworts. We're gonna kill as much of the slime lung as possible while our base slowly fills up with oxygen, which will kill the slime lung as well. And then, sigh of relief. We've made it. All right, so it's time to not spend sand and power on deodorizer, so let's not deconstruct them. Yeah, I was like, maybe things are gonna go wrong again, so why keep rebuilding them over and over again? Just add some automation wires, and if slime lung makes another appearance, just press a button. The next thing we do is we start thinking about space food. What are we gonna feed our astronauts? So we build this chamber that's gonna have wild planted waterweed, and then we also build another chamber that in the future is going to have wild planted sleet wheat. I do make a mistake in this case. You're not supposed to plant the sleet wheat before you finish the chamber above, so we dig it up, and later on we're gonna put the sleet wheat back in. It's time to remodel our kitchen because we want to start cooking with the gas range and give our astronauts great quality food, which gives plus 12 morale. And we want to also add freshener spice to the food, which is extremely OP, by the way. Usually food, you can either stop it from rotting or slow down the rot. Freshener spiced foods, if they are in a sterile environment and refrigerated, they gain back freshness. And that's going to be very useful. We are now at cycle 1000, so you can definitely get to this point without any liquid pipes. And it's such a nice milestone to also run out of the thing that could have killed us all this time. No more slime. We've turned it all into mushrooms. And we've cooked those mushrooms into fried... Bless you. We've cooked all those mushrooms into fried mushrooms, which we're going to turn into mushroom wrap for our astronauts. We also, for some reason, build an automatic seed duplicator. We built a manual one earlier, and we built another one because we want to duplicate mealwood seeds. This turned out, by the way, to be completely useless. Too annoying to use, so we just decided to just plant mealwood plants later on and just get seeds from there. But, it exists for some reason. Alright, enough messing around. It's time to go to space. And it is at this point I realize that we're never gonna run out of slime. I forgot that our asteroid has slime meteor showers. Thankfully, the slime line dies very fast on those because of the radiation in space, so no problems there. How many rockets do we want to build? We want 5. So we built 5 rocket platforms, and then we are gonna fuel them with this chamber. We're using steam rockets, so obviously we need steam. And the way we're going to get steam is by heating up water beyond the 100 degrees Celsius. How are we going to do that? With liquid tapidizers. The thing is, liquid tapidizers, in oxygen not included, they only heat liquids up to 85 degrees Celsius. But if you set up some automation and have them turn on and off very, very fast, they can keep heating liquids beyond 85 degrees Celsius. This is extremely overpowered. You can generate immense amounts of electricity if you strap steam turbines on top. But the thing is, we don't have liquid pipes, so we can't use steam turbines. So it's still, exploity, but not that exploity. And now that we have steam, it's time to pump it into our rockets. We have the steam go around in a loop because if it cools down too much, then it's going to state change back into water, and that's going to break our pipes. So we have it go around in and out of the steam room so that it doesn't lose heat. Our first rocket is an exploration/data bank generator rocket. We need data banks to do the most advanced science in the game, orbital research, and to make databanks, we need an orbital research module that only functions in space. So we built the rocket, we have 2 of our finest duplicates operated, and then off to space we go, and now we can explore and generate data banks. We also start building the interiors for our colonizing rockets, which are going to land on other planets. We're going to have 3 of those rockets, each housing 3 duplicates. Now you can make, a spacefarer module house 4 duplicates with Atmo suits, but that tends to be very claustrophobic from my experience. And since I don't have access to liquid pipes, I don't have the wall toilet, which takes up less space than an outhouse. I have to fit an outhouse in here unless I want my duplicates, peeing everywhere. But there is one more thing I'd like to have before we launch those rockets, and that is glass. Now, if you've played the game, you'll know that you can't make glass without the glass forge, unless you do it the old-fashioned way. And that's why we're going to need this volcano that we found earlier. We build a perimeter around the volcano, we vacuum out the area, and we analyze it. We even put a warning system in place. If any gas manages to get in, then we're gonna know. Very, very important for us to know. We also geotune the volcano. Each one of these geotuners increases the output of the volcano by 20%, and more importantly, increases the temperature of the magma by 150 degrees Celsius. Why would we want magma that hot? Well, the basic ungeotuned version of the volcano, the magma coming out of it is barely hot enough to get a lot of glass. If we want massive quantities of glass, we're going to need some very, very hot magma. But not this hot. Something my methane and sulfur filled brain didn't realize at the time. If we let 5 geotuners be active on a volcano, it wouldn't release magma. It would have released rock gas, which would have... I don't even want to imagine what would have happened. Thankfully, the mistake has been caught and one of the geotuners was disabled. And now that we have this very hot, but not too hot, magma, we can move on to the next step, and that is taking small amounts of sand and dumping it into the magma. That's going to turn it into molten glass. The next thing we do is we build some tiles and temp shift plates. It doesn't matter what you make these out of. I mean, it kind of matters, but not too much. And what we do, and I have no idea why Oni devs allow this, but apparently you can use pitcher pumps to take out the molten glass out of the magma. So we dump that onto the cool temp shift plates and tiles, and that solidifies the molten glass into glass. Alright, one more thing we gotta do, and that is to use some duplicate sorcery. We're gonna use a trick where if duplicants build something out of some very hot materials, the thing they build resets to a cooler temperature. So we grab the very hot glass, build some window tiles out of it, then we deconstruct those tiles, and we have glass. And then we keep making glass for a very long time. We want a lot of it, so we keep doing the same thing over and over again. Now you might have noticed that the setup for the volcano has changed. There's a couple of doors there, and the reason why is to crush the old, less hot magma so that we can keep getting new, hotter magma. So that's going to allow us to keep using the heat from the volcano. While we were doing this, we got a meteor shower, and you might be wondering, how do we deal with it? The answer is, we don't. We just let it do its thing. You can still use broken ladders, so I mean, that's fine, but also we can't make bunker doors and bunker tiles, which require steel. So we just repair things that need repairing and leave things that are still functional after being damaged and not repairing them. That's how we deal with the meteor showers. It's getting embarrassing at this point. It's almost cycle 1200 and we still haven't We did? Yes, we did, by accident. So yeah, one of the rockets launched it by accident. But I guess on voyage. The other two, we add solar panel modules like we were supposed to for the first rocket, and then off they go as well. And we don't go very far. We actually go to the planet we have a teleporter for, Glowacita, and we start strip mining the whole place. But that's not the main objective. The main objective is to get something else, which we get later on. While we're doing this, we notice a problem inside our rockets. The polluted dirt coming out of our outhouses is off-gassing polluted oxygen. And if we don't get rid of that, that's going to rot our food eventually, and our astronauts are going to starve. So, goodbye bathroom 1+1 morale room bonus. We're going to add a deodorizer. And we completely forgot to do that for our science rocket, our data bank making rocket. Poor Nicola, man, he's about to starve. Thankfully, the rocket is close enough to our home planet, so we just landed and he goes to have some food while we take care of the main culprit. And we add a deodorizer. And would you look at that? The printing pod has finally offered us the choice to get some steel. It's a choice we can't refuse, of course, but we do. We'll be fine. We can take the glass, but I mean, we have plenty of it, so reject. You know, steel has been taunting us with its versatility and usefulness, so it was time to enact the plan. And the plan is not very simple. The plan involves several steps, and what you're seeing here is the first step. And if we finish the plan, we're going to get a material that is in every way better than steel. And the first step of this plan is to build a rocket that has an interior below zero, which is what we're trying to do here. We've built some ice temp shift plates, and we continue building this rocket interior. But before we even finish the first step of the plan, we face a problem. The interior of the rocket has gotten too hot, and we tried to rescue the situation with more ice temp shift plates, but yeah, they start melting. So we try and cool down the whole situation with 2 Wheezeworts. I have no idea why I thought this was a good idea at the time. There's no way these 2 poor flowers are gonna cool 15 tiles of water. Dumb. All right, so we give up on the first step of the plan, and I'm gonna come back to it later. Back on Glowacita, while we were strip mining the place, we also built a lot of solar panels. We're finally making use of all that glass we made. And the reason why is they're effectively bunker doors and bunker tiles. Nothing goes through them. They stop meteors from doing meteor things. While we were digging around, we also found something interesting. I swear I did not build these. So, you know what the main challenge of the run. So these have got to go. Bye-bye. At this point, we're almost out of oxalite in our main rockets. So we stop strip mining for now, and we grab the main thing we came in here for, and that is these tiny B-tinies. These turn into useless adult betas in like 2 cycles, and we're really gonna be running against the clock here. Miyama grabs one of them, puts it into one of the rockets, and off we go. And then back to our home planet, we let the bee tiny out, and by the time it drops to the floor, it's already an adult beta. Thankfully, we've got 2 more rockets, so attempt number 2, and this time the bee tiny doesn't turn into an adult beta. Nicola grabs it and heads straight to where we need that bee tiny to be, and that is our hydrogen production facility. Nicola takes it out of the bag, and I guess he performed a magic trick here, because the bee tiny, for some reason, just disappears. All right, 3rd time. That's gotta be the charm, right? So again, the bee tiny is out of the rocket. Nicola grabs it, heads straight down to the hydrogen production facility, and it works. The bee tiny is turning itself into a beta hive. Why go through all this trouble? This is a question you might be asking. Well, 2 reasons. The bees are going to be important for the plan. They are an essential part of the plan. And the second reason is that these beta hives, once you got them up and running, they spawn bees for free. So Saturn critter traps can keep eating them instead of the pips we've been feeding them this entire time. It's more humane for the pips. Instead of being digested over 120 cycles, we turn them into barbecue instead. We drown them over half a cycle. Speaking of the plan, remember that first step we failed spectacularly earlier? Well, we've rebuilt the Spacefarer module and the stuff inside of it, and instead of using ice temp shift plates, this time we're actively cooling things inside with hydrogen, and that works very well. We also go back to Glowacita and continue strip mining. And when I say strip mining here, I don't mean we're just gonna take the solids from this planet. We're also gonna take the liquids. And the way we're gonna do that is by mopping. You can use this trick to mop an entire pool of water. And once you've done that, you can just take the bottled, mopped liquids and just use the move command to move it wherever you want. In this case, we're gonna move that massive amount of liquid into our rockets. We also do the same thing for the ethanol. We take that with us, and we do the same thing to the salt water too. There's also an aluminum volcano here, and we're taming it in a similar way to the way we've tamed our metal volcanoes on our home planet. The salt geyser above provides more than enough cooling. And there's also a copper and a gold volcano with a cool slush geyser next to them as well. I'm going to use that to cool them. At this point, we've basically taken everything that's not nailed down on this asteroid and we've put it into our rockets. That includes the liquids as well. So there was only one thing left to do, and that is to build a refueling station. This is going to be similar to the one we have on our home planet, filled with steam, and that steam is going to keep fueling any rockets that land here. So with that done, it's time to go. We're back on our home planet, and there's a couple of things we want to do before we enact the plan. And one of those things is that we want to tidy up this massive pool of mixed liquids at the bottom of our planet. And we use a similar setup that we've used on Glowacita. We mop the entire pool and then separate out the liquids into different pools. Alright, it's time to move on to the next step of the plan, and before we even get to that, my man Stinky walks out of the indestructible liquid lock with some very hot glass and creates some gas that has some lemon flavor, sour gas in the worst possible location in the game, and that's the geotuned volcano. So we immediately vacuum out the area, and thankfully there is not that much sour gas, and we end up averting a massive disaster. The second step of the plan is to make some refined phosphorus. And how do you get refined phosphorus? You take Draco poop, phosphorite, heat it up, and you get liquid phosphorus. Then you take the liquid phosphorus, cool it down, and you get refined phosphorus. We have plenty of heat, and that is through the volcano. So we dump some crude oil on the side, and we're going to use a door to finally control the temperature of the crude oil to be the exact temperature we need to make liquid phosphorus. But we actually overshoot it. This is going to give us phosphorus gas. We don't want that. So we add some temp shift plates to cool down the crude oil a bit, and now we can start feeding in some phosphorus, and it turns into liquid phosphorus. We use a pitcher pump to take it out and then dump it into an ice biome, and that turns it into refined phosphorus. Before we enact the third step of the plan, there's a couple of things we do, and one of them is go back to Glowacita and fix the refueling station. Those should not be insulated tiles, and we should not be using insulated pipes. We should be using normal pipes, radiant pipes, and either normal or metal tiles. This is to make sure that the steam doesn't change into water inside the pipes and break them. That's what's been happening. So we fix it. We've also rejigged the databank generator rocket, and it's now only an exploration rocket. It's going to be making use of the refueling stations more than any other rocket, and it's going to start exploring space. The third step of the plan is to fly to a special planet, and that is Volcano, the magma planet. We land, we do the usual stuff, build some solar panels for power, and it's very high radiation here, so we built some plastic tiles to protect our duplicants from getting sick, and we also start building a hospital. It's gonna be very obvious why soon. So there are several ways to handle the magma on this planet, steam turbines, pitcher pumps, nuclear waste. But, the following method, I would say, arguably is the fastest but most dangerous. I don't know if you could tell, but I'm a fan of crushing things with doors. And that is what we're going to do here. We're going to crush the magma with doors. Once the magma level goes down, we deconstruct the doors, and then we build the same exact setup just, below. Now, as you can see, there is some OSHA violations happening here. Severe OSHA violations. But that's why we pre-built the hospital, because, you know, we're going to try and make sure that our duplicates recover. Especially when they go unconscious, like Mia Ma here. Someone please take her. Thank you very much. At some point, we have 3 duplicates stuck in what I imagine is the most horrible situation possible that could ever exist, in oxygen not included. Stuck in magma without any way of getting out. 3 at the same time. And we try and rush as fast as possible to see if we can save them, but honestly at this point I was accepting... Oh my god, the noises. I was accepting the fact that they're gone. They're gone, and I'm gonna have to face trial. But somehow, magically, unbelievably, we managed to save all of them. With that nightmare over, we continue digging down, and we actually reach all the way to the bottom of the asteroid, and we add some door crushers there that will crush the rest of the magma on the asteroid. There's also some sour gas that we gotta deal with, and you know, there are several ways to deal with that as well. And you know, one of the easiest ways, I would say, is to just build this chimney so that the sour gas just goes up, and you just play the waiting game after that. We also uncover the key element of the plan. This is the most important part of the plan, and that is this niobium volcano. But before we get to taming it, we still have to take care of a few things. We have to wait for the sour gas to exit, to leave, to be vented into space, and that happens. We also have to take care of some leftover magma, and this time we go old school. Pitcher pumps, pump it into some bottles, and then empty out those bottles into the vacuum of space. We've also been, as you can see, sweeping the hot obsidian and igneous rock from the map. We don't want any of that anywhere when we start building the setup to tame the niobium volcano. And we also get to a point where even pitcher pumps can't get to the magma anymore. So the rest of the magma, we built some temp shift plates on it, and that cools it down, and it's just a matter of sweeping the rest of the very hot materials. There is one last place where there is a lot of heat, and that's the ladders we've been building to explore and dig on the asteroid. And the easiest way to deal with that is to build new ladders over the old ones. And after that, we just sweep the obsidian, and done. We have now obliterated all the heat on the magma asteroid. And it's finally time to plop down the blueprint that will allow us to tame this niobium volcano. You know, this blueprint, I've designed it in a test map, and from my excitement at this point in time, you know, I forgot that there is something in the way. Can you see it? Can you see what's in the way? That's right. Neutronium. No big deal. We plop down the blueprint again, slightly to the right this time. We do have to rejig a few things, but you know, nothing too major. Now, at some point, we also have to add ethanol droplets to our conveyor loaders and sweepers. Would be nice if we had conduction panels, but those need liquid pipes. The reason why is we're gonna have a hydrogen loop going through them to cool them down. And as we do that, well, this happens. Thankfully, not that much ethanol off-gassed, and it has a low condensation point, so it ends up raining down into nothingness. Disaster averted. At this point, we also bring down our special rocket, the one that has a very cool interior. I'll let you know what it's transporting in just a bit. We do have to prepare our cooling room. This is what's gonna cool down the niobium volcano, and what's gonna be doing the cooling? That's right, Wizwards. Wheeze-worts. We're also going to be geotuning this volcano. Why have less niobium if you can have more niobium, right? And this is why we've made refined phosphorus. The amount we've made is enough to last this niobium volcano for thousands of cycles. So shortly after, we get our first eruption, and as you can see, there's a lot of niobium. This particular volcano outputs 2.5 kilograms of niobium a second. That's more than the output of all the metal volcanoes we've tamed on the map so far. But before we start cooling down the niobium, there is one more thing that we need. It's what we've been transporting inside our very cold rocket, the special rocket. Bees. This planet is too far, and if we tried to transport bee tinies, by the time we would have got here, they would have turned into adult bee tinies. So why not just transport an entire hive? That's what we've done here. So now that we have bees, it's time to introduce them to Volcano. But before we fire the whole thing up, we have a sour gas situation. Like this is not ideal. Thankfully, it's not that much gas, so we start, trying to vacuum out the entire area. And that's when Nisbet, if there was ever a 0-star hotel, this is it. Like, why? You have a bed. I don't get it. While we deal with the sour gas situation, we build a setup to extract what we want out of the bees. Why? Why are the bees here? Because when they die, they drop nuclear waste, 1 kilogram of nuclear waste. Of course, you could get much more from a research reactor, but when you can't build a research reactor, you rely on bees. All right, enough nonsense. It's time to fire this thing up. Now what's going to happen is that this auto sweeper is going to use this pitcher pump to pump out molten niobium. It's a sentence that makes sense in oxygen not included. And then this molten niobium is going to go through 2 mesh tiles and solidify. And when it does, there's not going to be any place for it to go. So it's going to get shunted into the right corner. Now there is some solid nuclear waste in there, and that's going to turn into liquid nuclear waste after it gets hot enough. And once it gets even hotter, that liquid nuclear waste is going to turn into nuclear fallout. That nuclear fallout flows upwards, hits the temp shift plates, gets cooled down back to liquid nuclear waste, and then state changes back again to nuclear fallout. And this keeps happening over and over again until the nuclear fallout reaches all the way to the very top where the wheeze-worts are. Nuclear waste and oxygen not included has a very interesting property. The liquid and solid nuclear waste, they have a specific heat capacity of 7.44, while the gas form of nuclear waste, nuclear fallout, has a specific heat capacity of 0.265. Meaning, if you introduce a source of heat, we have some magma being dumped into all three, you're going to notice that the solid nuclear waste and the liquid nuclear waste is changing temperature, but not as fast as the nuclear fallout. This was spawned at a temperature of 500 degrees Celsius, and it's already going up very fast. That's because the specific heat capacity of nuclear fallout is very low. But these, they have a very high specific heat capacity. Now, if you could somehow make nuclear fallout transition into liquid nuclear waste or solid nuclear waste and then back into nuclear fallout very, very fast, you could destroy insane amounts of heat. In real life, there is no material like this. If we had a material like this in real life, we'd be in other galaxies at this point, other solar systems. This is insanely overpowered. And that's what this setup does. Now, using just wheeze-worts to, make use of that unique property of nuclear waste isn't actually enough to get this amount of cooling. This is why the setup is also a heat exchanger. So when the nuclear fallout reaches where the wheeze-worts are, it turns into solid nuclear waste, goes down, and as it does, it cools down the temp shift plates it's interacting with on its way down, and that makes those temp shift plates cool enough to turn nuclear fallout into liquid nuclear waste on their own. And this keeps happening over and over and over again until all the nuclear fallout in the chimney basically turns into liquid nuclear waste. And now we take out the niobium using the auto sweeper and conveyor loader at the bottom. And because this is a heat exchanger, the niobium is going to be very hot in the beginning of the chimney, but as it goes up, it's going to get cooler and cooler and cooler until we get, an acceptable temperature for the niobium. It's going to be around, between 90 to 120 degrees Celsius. The plan is complete. So we let our duplicants, enjoy some leisure time. We send them back to base. And now we wait for a bit to see if anything goes wrong. What I told you is the theory. Let's see if things actually work in practice. And 3, 2, 1. And we are Gucci. No rock gas. Nothing has melted. It's all good. There's a couple of broken gas pumps in the refueling setup we've built on this planet, but has nothing to do with the niobium volcano. Now, this setup has surprised me. It's so efficient that a single wheezewort this entire time is what did the cooling. There are other wheezeworts in there, you can see them, but they're only supposed to activate if things got too hot, and they never did. So this single wheezewort cooled down a geotuned volcano. And this is only a fraction of this flower's power, by the way. During testing, I was throwing 20 tons of magma a second at this single wheezewort, and it was handling it like a champ. So let's go grab all that niobium. We send our astronauts back to Volcano, and how are we gonna grab this slightly hottish niobium? The usual, duplicant sorcery. Yeah, build something out of the niobium and then deconstruct it and then sweep it. Before we go, we also reset the geotuners, and we have to do that every 120-ish cycles. Plus, remember the broken pumps in the refueling station? Well, we fixed those as well. And then, bon voyage. Our man Harold in the exploration rocket has found the end. The end is in sight, and there is the temporal tear. Before we open it and go through, there are a few things we want to do. One is we want to use all that niobium. Niobium is better than steel in almost every way. Niobium adds plus 500 degrees to the overheat temperature of buildings, while steel adds only plus 200. Also, it looks nicer. Niobium has a plus 50% decor bonus. So we go back to the chamber where we tamed our metal volcanoes, and instead of having this, janky setup with auto sweepers and conveyor loaders outside, we put stuff inside, and that feels amazing. We also want to block off the sky on our main planet, and the plan was to build bunker doors and bunker tiles. But while working on getting the niobium, I checked the materials, and no, you can only use steel for that. So we're gonna have solar panels block off the sky instead. It's at this point that we think that we've done enough, and it's time to wrap things up. So we send our astronauts to the planet that has the temporal tear opener, and it doesn't take us very long to find it. We build another refueling station. This is standard. Any planet we visit, we're going to build one of these. And after that, we build the setup that's going to charge the temporal tear opener. It needs 10,000 rad bolts. And we're going to use our best friends. They've been very, very good this run. Wheezeworts to generate the radiation. And at this point, it doesn't actually charge. I forgot that you need 5 activated printing pods on different planets for it to start charging. We already have 3, so we need 2 more. We build one of them, activate it, and then we visit another planet. We don't do much there. We're just there for the printing pod and to build the refueling station. Build another one there, activate it, and then back to where the temporal tear opener is. And then it's just a matter of waiting until it fully charges. So it's now time to activate the temporal tear opener and open the tear. 3, 2, 1. Pa! Our job here is done, so we leave, and now we go through the process of painfully selecting someone to go through the tear. And after going through all our duplicates, I've decided that the person who is gonna do it is Mr. Stinky. No, not Abe. Stinky. What is Stinky? Yeah, Stinky. And the reason why he is the duplicate we spawned by mistake, and his name really describes the contents of my brain sometimes, so I thought he'd be perfect for this task. Alright, Stinky, get inside. Fantastic, so let's get going. And yes, the rocket we're going to be taking to the tear is the B rocket. Now, typically you can't actually go to the tear directly with a steam engine because you'd run out of fuel. Thankfully, we have refueling stations everywhere, and the closest refueling station to the tear is the one on Volcano. So we have Stinky stop by there and get some more fuel before going on. I notice just before the tear that someone is stressing. Who is stressing? It's Stinky. Now, why? Why is it happening? Because he's out of food. We launched a rocket with like 10,000 calories, and I'm not gonna lie, while he was going to the tear, I was doing things in the back. I was playing Hearthstone. And this is why this is happening. So, he should be fine. We're like a cycle away from the tear, and he has 1,700 calories. So he has more than enough, stored calories to get to the tear. The problem is, though, this happened. I won't lie, at this point I was kind of panicking. Now I'm looking at this footage and I have some hindsight bias going on what I should have done. What I should have done is not ask him to mop his own vomit. This is not a priority at the moment. The problem is, at this point, he stopped piloting the rocket. And if you have a rocket that's not being piloted by a duplicate, then it slows down. We're back to 1.1 cycles now. And the bees are not, I don't think they like the situation either, and they let it out on Stinky. Please get out of there, my man. Thankfully, he does go back to piloting the rocket, but he is 5 calories short. And yeah, rest in peace, Stinky. Sorry, man. But we're not gonna let Stinky's sacrifice go to waste. Let's enter the tear. And now we can answer the question, can you beat oxygen not included without liquid pipes? The answer is 100% absolutely. But this is the official way to beat oxygen not included. If you know someone who played this game for far too long, they'll tell you that the real way to beat oxygen not included is to not play oxygen not included. It's to make a base that can run without you for the rest of time while your duplicates live in luxury. So let's do that. Now the base we have is already a forever base, but I wouldn't call it a luxury forever base. If we want our duplicates to breathe, nice oxygen and not pee fumes, we need to do something about that. That's why we are here, the water planet. We need to get super coolant, and to get super coolant, we need fullerene. And to get fullerene, we need graphite, which is on the water planet. So we start digging and basically take everything, strip mine it, But this time we don't take the liquid with us. Instead, what we do is we absolutely obliterate it until nothing is left. Because why have more lag if you can have less lag? So bye-bye water. And now that we have graphite and everything else on the water planet, there is no need for us to be here anymore. So we leave. Now, while we were absolutely obliterating this planetoid, our explorer astronaut Harold has paid a visit to Volcano for two very good reasons. One, the debris from Stinky's rocket is here. And since Stinky didn't make it through the tear, I'm assuming he is in the rocket debris. And we want to pay homage to him later on. So we grab the debris and put it in the rocket. The second problem is that the nuclear waste in our niobium volcano tamer has built up too much, and you need a specific amount of nuclear waste, otherwise the Wizwort would get overwhelmed. So we fixed that as well. Now, to get supercoolant, you also need petroleum, and it would be nice if we had access to the oil refinery, but we don't. Thankfully, we do have a source of heat, lots and lots of heat, and there's crude oil already there from when we made refined phosphorus. So we just up the temperature until this happens. There we go. Petroleum. We also need sulfur, gold, and aluminum to be able to make supercoolant, but we have plenty of those materials. So we start making supercoolant and even some thermium that's going to be useful in the setup we're about to build as well. While we do that, we decide we want to dig up the rest of the natural tiles in our main base. Not gonna lie, that takes ages, wasn't fun, so let's just skip ahead like 150 cycles forward, and there we go. Nice and clean. Alright, it's time to build the setup that's gonna give us clean oxygen for the rest of time, and it looks something like this. So what this setup is supposed to do is take in polluted oxygen and cool it down until it becomes liquid oxygen. And then we have a liquid tapidizer at the bottom that is submerged in supercoolant, and that's going to turn the liquid oxygen into oxygen. And that's how we get clean oxygen. Now, it's going to take a while to get the supercoolant down to a temperature that's low enough to freeze the oxygen. And we actually make a big mistake here and try and figure out what that mistake is while we go back to Volcano. We want to take all of the niobium we've been stockpiling for hundreds of cycles, and we're going to use that niobium to build a lot of the things that are going to make our duplicants live a very luxurious lifestyle. And we have at this point 800 tons of niobium, all cooled down by a single Wizwort. And that's going to require a lot of duplicant sorcery to get all of it. We managed to do all of that, and we came back to our home planet, and our clean oxygen maker still hasn't cooled down things low enough to be able to make liquid oxygen. We've cooled things down to like minus 98 degrees Celsius, but this needs to be at like minus 180 before we can start it up. And the problem is the gas reservoirs. I thought that by having mesh tiles below them, they wouldn't exchange heat with the surrounding environment, but they do. There's hydrogen all around them. So we vacuum out the room, have a brain fart where we deconstruct pipes with hydrogen in them, realize, that I am a big moron. So we vacuum out the area again, and then we deconstruct pipes that also have hydrogen in them, realize I'm the biggest idiot to ever exist, and we vacuum out the room again. Thankfully, that's as far as it gets. So we cool the supercoolant again, and this time it doesn't take that long, only like 15 cycles, because the gas reservoirs are in a vacuum, and seems to be working. So what is happening here? We have polluted oxygen coming in from our polluted water vents. That's where we're pumping it from. And it flows against the clean oxygen we're getting out of turning liquid oxygen into gas. Yes, this is a heat exchanger. So, the clean oxygen by the end is going to have the temperature of the polluted oxygen that's coming in. And because of that, we're also making the polluted oxygen colder, so that we won't need as much power to cool it down to liquid oxygen. We would need way more thermoregulators than the 6 you see here if we were just cooling it down directly into liquid oxygen. So there is only one more thing to do here, and that is send the clean oxygen into our base. And the next step is to start thinking of how our duplicants are going to live a life of opulence. One of the first things we do is we start making frost burgers. We have all the ingredients, fully sustainable. So let's make the best quality food in the game. Next are private bedrooms, and we're gonna build one for every single duplicant, all 16 of them. And inside those bedrooms and above and below, we're going to build niobium statues. Remember that plus 50% decor bonus? These are effectively the same as gold statues. They provide an insane amount of decor, and we're not gonna only do that for the bedrooms. We're gonna do that for the bathrooms too. And at the end of it all, it looks something like this. We also build entertainment, jukebox, arcade, beach chair, and of course you have to have a wind tunnel. So we build one of those as well. And then we move on to the very last thing we're going to do in this run. We upgrade our Great Hall, add some statues here and there, decor it. And in the middle, we put someone who's going to be here in spirit as our duplicants live in luxury forever. And that is Stinky. It's time to not play Oxygen Not Included. This base, in theory, will run forever. Everything in it is fully sustainable. But we don't have enough computing power in the universe to be able to run this base forever. So we're just gonna let it run for a very, very long time. And if nothing goes wrong, we're gonna assume that it can, run forever. Every time I've tried this, by the way, in previous playthroughs, something goes wrong. Like the most unexpected things can cause an entire colony to collapse. And I'm hoping that the colony is not gonna collapse in this case. I hope. Fingers crossed. So let's find out. 3, 2, 1. And there we go. Thank you so much for watching, if anyone actually did watch this video. And, subscribe and hit that bell. We're going to be doing more Oxygen Not Included challenge runs. In the next one, we're going to try and find out if it's possible to beat Oxygen Not Included when we give duplicants every single skill in the game. And that's on the highest stress difficulty. I played it for a bit as of the recording of this video. It's not fun for me, but I think it's going to be fun to watch.